Oh, what a great
Hold it.
segue. So
Hold
that
it.
brings me to my stories, my Kabbalah stories. Do we have a, oh yeah, we do. Okay, yeah, thank you. If a person opens the Bible, they see miracles a dime a dozen every other page. There's lots of miracles. I had a good friend who was a musician. That means he had a long ponytail, and he was waiting to go triple platinum, although he didn't have an agent, he didn't have a manager, no one ever heard of him. So there's about 10,000 people like that living in Hollywood, and every other 3 months they sleep on someone else's couch, waiting to get the Oscar, to land the part, it's Hollywood. Musicians, actresses, screenwriters, everybody has one. So he was at the end of his rope. His final umpteenth friend is saying, okay, Herbie, you gotta go. You've been here 6 months. Get a day job or just, face reality. So he told me he went to the shul. He was going to the Chabad house in Westwood at that time. And he went into the synagogue, was always open. He opened the prayer book. He was alone in the synagogue, and he said, Dear God in heaven, if you're there, turn the page. He needs to know just one sign for the rest of his life. That's all he needs. Guess what happened?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. That's not happening. He's Herbie. He's not Moses or Isaiah or Jeremiah. So the question is, since the Bible has been canonized and it's finished being written, and all the miracles are in the Bible, for the last 2,000, I don't know how many thousands of years, 3,500 years, the Bible was given 3,000 and change, 3,300 and change ago. Where do you see miracles? Where do you see God? How about Jews for the last 20 centuries or more, 30 centuries? If someone confronts you and say, did God ever talk back to you? And if he did, does that mean you stopped taking your meds? Did they bring the men in the white coats with the butterfly nets for you? What happened if you said son of Sam said that he was a serial killer, God talked to him? People are going to get nervous if you talk like that. So where do we personally have our own faith validated, reassured, strengthened? Sinai was one, there's a Hasidic saying, Sinai, it's called the theophany, in $64 language, the theophany means a divine revelation. That happened once. This is the year 65. What year was Sinai? 2448. What English Goyish year before the Common Era? Lucky 13 two times. In the year 1313 BCE, the Sinai theophany, and it was in the personal. In Hebrew is like Spanish. There's singular and plural. The Ten Commandments says, I am the Lord thy God. Now thy, your God, can either be your singular, your plural. There it's singular. God's talking to 3 million Jews. What's that about? Everybody had that. That means every single personal individual had a one-on-one between the four eyes, as they say in Yiddish, but God has no eyes. That's what happened. To the point where this met you at Sinai thing, all of our energy of continuing and perpetuating the Jewish heritage comes from that one singular event. Sinai will never happen again. That's the Hasidic saying. It happened one time. 400 years ago, Rabbi Luria lived. The later period of Kabbalah, early Kabbalah, later Kabbalah, Zohar Kabbalah, Lurianic Kabbalah. Rabbi Luria said 4 centuries ago that the majority of Jewish people are reincarnations. Now it's 400 years later. We can safely assume that everybody in this room is at least second time around. Nothing new here. If you don't get it right, you're doomed to repeat it. Where do you see the miracles? Where do you see God, the finger of, where do you see, how do you know your whole life you pray somebody, Orthodox Jew, take an Orthodox Jew. He's praying 3 times a day. If he doesn't eat or drink, he's saying a minimum of 57 Baruch Atahs. Blessed are you, blessed are you. Did God ever once say, thank you? Did ever once say, yo, I'm here? A lot of words, a lot of time, a lot of action, energy, intellect, emotion invested in. You never heard back from him. No reply. Maybe address unknown. How do you know, really? So, how do you see that? Hasidic mysticism emphasizes something called hashgacha pratit, individual, detailed supervision. Supervision, capital S, for the supervisor. We have a Yiddish word that translates that your grandmothers all knew. B-A-S-H-E-R-T. In modern English, besides bashert in the Yiddish, it's in the Webster Dictionary as a word that was coined by Jung, and the word is synchronicity. The definition of synchronicity, Carl Gustav Jung was a religious man, his father was a minister. Right idea, the wrong address, but he believed in God very strongly. And in his last of many books, Mysterium Conjunctivitis, he writes that everything that I have written about in behavioral science was already intuited by Dov Ber of Mezrich. Who was Dov Ber of Mezrich? Jung, after Freud, is the most popular behavioral scientist. He said everything that he said, 20 books, about how the human psyche, which is a Jung word for soul, works. There was a Hasidic Rebbe that knew it all already. He was the protege and the successor of the Baal Shem Tov, founder of the Hasidic movement. So the Baal Shem Tov's number one pupil was my 16-year-old Berry, is named after him, Dov Ber, after the Maggid, the great preacher of Mezrich. So how do you see God in synchronicities? You have to compound them to become a believer. If it's simple, it's not going to work. What do I mean? You're on a business trip and you rent a car at the airport, you're driving to the address, an important meeting, and before you start on a business trip, you get a ticket on your car, you're pulled over, moving violation, and you miss the plane. And you find out the plane was hijacked to Algeria. That's the first thank God. Why thank God? Thank the hijackers. Then you finally get the next plane, you go to your place, you get into the car, you roll down, you're lost, you roll down the window, you ask the guy, say, how do I get to, oh my gosh, you were in my high school graduating class 2,000 miles from here 15 years ago, I can't believe it. Those are called simple, non-compound fingers of God. Now you can choose to believe it or not believe it because it's not powerful. It can go like this. What's an example of like this? Guy's in his car for a very important meeting, and he's trying to find a parking space, and he just is at the end of a career change, power lunch, and he says, dear God in heaven, if you get me a parking space right now, I promise I'll say the Shema every morning and every evening for the rest of my life. Just then a parking space opens up, and he pulls in. No thanks, already found one. He just missed it. Whoosh, dum-dum. Come on, wake up and get it together. How small is your faith? I hate to quote, not of my tradition, I don't, never, almost. But Grover Patterson was a guy who had it together. And he said, cynicism is the easy retreat of a small and faithless mind. I kind of like that. But, so let me give you a few synchronicities that there's no way you could believe that it was serendipity. That's the opposite of synchronicity. It means coincidence, arbitrary, just happened. Hitler was an unsuccessful wallpaper hanger, and he became almost the ruler of the entire Western world. Killed a third of our people. That's powerful. He was a zero. So, what is it? How do you see God? Well, that was the big thing about the temple. Just before I tell you the synchronicities, what's the big? The temple was a building. There's been no temple for 2,000 years. So what? Jews are praying. They're doing commandments. Some do, some don't. But the beat goes on. We're still having Passover. I mean, what is it? So what? 90% of 5.2 million Jews in America have never been to Israel. So forget about the temple. What's the big deal with the temple? The temple was a big deal because once upon a time, all Jews lived in Israel, and they went to the temple 3 times a year, sort of like seasonal. What did they see in the temple? 10 miracles. That's all you need. If you see 10 open miracles in front of millions of people, that's all you need. That's like Sinai again. There's no temple. There's no miracles. The word for miracle is what in Hebrew?
Nes.
Nes. What's the word for flag in ancient Hebrew? Modern Hebrew, it's dega. What's ancient Hebrew? Same word. A miracle is a banner that God exists. It's a flag. It's a nes. Nes means banner. Okay, so this is the synchronicity. You heard this before. But this is an undeniable synchronicity. We have a few minutes left. I'll maybe give you another one when you haven't heard. So I always heard about it. This was my 10th summer in Tzfat. In Israel, Tzfat is a vortex of energy, one of the 4 holy cities of Israel, where the Kabbalah was founded, in a sense, and it was invented, written, taught, etc. The greatest Kabbalists in the world, 6 or 7 of them, lived at the same time in Tzfat. The synagogues are there, the graves are there, the mikveh is there. So it's my 10th summer in Tzfat. Tzfat is very powerful. If anybody has any sensitivity in their soul whatsoever, they walk through the ancient city of Tzfat. It's 400 years old. It's something. Now there's 2 Tzfats in America. Lahavdom. Sedona, Arizona, and Taos, New Mexico. So I heard about these Tzfats of America, so I figured, okay, listen, for an Orthodox rabbi, the pay is lousy, but the perks are great. You get to travel. So I figured I'll get a gig somewhere in there. So Albuquerque is a city of 2 million people, big Chabad, a mikveh, a synagogue. An hour and a half from Albuquerque is a place called Santa Fe, New Mexico. An artsy kind of place. There's a little Chabad there. Hour and a half from Santa Fe is Taos. Sure enough, I get a gig in Santa Fe. I'm going to do a Shabbaton. 83 people show up to an Italian restaurant that was kosherized by the rabbi. I do my thing. The young fella starting off, he asked me what I want. I told him, listen, you don't have anything. What are you going to give me? Give me a car rental for 3 days. I want to drive to Taos. Thank you. All right. I say, where's my subcompact? Say, we don't have your car. I have a reservation. All we have is a new SUV. Twist my arm. Get into the SUV, push the button. From Santa Fe to Taos, there's nobody on the road. Nobody. Rearview mirror, nobody. Front, there's nobody there. There's nobody there. It's desert, surrounded by the Colorado Rockies. It's gorgeous. It's Taos, New Mexico is in the Guinness World Book of Records. The only city in America where the sun shines 365 days a year. It's a very special place. So, I need a place to stay. Oh, this place to stay in a hotel in Taos. I mean, the rinky-dink place in the first place. So I go to so there was a rock and roller who came to my house for 10 years Friday night. And my wife says she just came back from Jerusalem. She has the girl for you. They get married, and they liquidate, and they move to Jerusalem. And she had a bed and breakfast in Taos, New Mexico. I got a place to stay. Okay, synchronicity. Thank you. Got it. Ronnie married Chaya. I just saw them. Last night I was sitting with them at the concert, yeah. So, okay, I go put my stuff down. I go out to a few cross streets that there are in this little town, shtetl called Taos, New Mexico. And I asked the locals, where can I go to see the sunset? Sunday afternoon, I want to see the sunsets not from the shtetl, but, after 3 minutes outside of Strauss, it's all flatlands. It's desert, surrounded by the mountains. And the highest thing is like a sagebrush. Sagebrush, it's all sagebrush, comes up to your knee. But from your knee and above, you can see 60 miles. I mean, it's beautiful. So he says 40 miles out of town is the second highest bridge in America, the Rio Grande Gorge Bridge. I'm going to go there to daven mincha to see the sunset, pray the afternoon service. I go there's one more car, I go to the other side of the bridge. It's a deep, it's beautiful gorge. I pray, very nice prayer there. But sunset lasts 42 minutes. From the time it starts to the sun, according to the Jewish halakha, 42 minutes. So I got another 20 minutes of sunset. I see in the distance a ridge going up, looking like onto a plateau. So I'm going to go over there. I get on the road again, push the button. I'm doing 105 again. There's nobody behind me, nobody in front of me. And then abruptly, the highway veers to the right away from the ridge. So I stop the car. There's nobody anywhere. I'm 40 miles from nowhere. It's really quiet. Olivia was in Israel, expecting another grandchild. So I look to my left towards where the ridge is, and I look down. And at the side of the road, where the desert begins, there's a road. There's like, not a highway, a gravel road. And this really makes no sense to me, because who is it for? There's nobody here. There's a road leading to nowhere, towards the ridge. So I turn the car, and I start to go down 5 miles an hour on this gravel dirt road. I pass a cactus, and then I see what appears to be a person. Now, this is winter time. It's 17 degrees Fahrenheit outside. That's serious cold. And there can't really be a person there, because where's his car? There's no car anywhere. And where's he going? So I told this in Hebrew in Paris, because I don't speak French, because the one says Sephardic and I speak Hebrew. So I said, how do you say in Hebrew mirage? I don't know how to say mirage. So they say, you idiot, you're in France. That's a French word. so I said, right, okay, an apparition, a mirage. Look, I don't know, it had a moment of self-doubt. I mean, this is it. I can't be. There's nobody walking at 17 degrees, and they come from, where did he come from? So then but I keep going, because I don't really know if it's real or not. So I keep going. I'm going 5 miles an hour on this road. And I think to myself, what happens if it's really a person? And the person turns around when they hear the car, and they go like that. They want to get in the car with me. So I think, I can find a piece of me behind the cactus over the next decade. This could be son of Sam and Dragon. I mean, anything could be possible. I don't know what's going on here. I mean, I'm one person out there. So, but they drum it into you in seminary, in a Hasidic seminary, that the mystical reality is everything, every detail. It's called detailed supervision in Hebrew. Hashgacha pratit al kol prat uprat. So not only does this have to be God ordained for me, there's got to be obviously some Jewish lesson here. And I can bet a lot of money. I'm from Atlantic City. Bet a lot of money this guy's not Jewish. I mean, that's what's going to be. It has to be something relevant to my Jewish soul, because that's who I am. So, and that's not happening. I don't believe that. It could happen here in this situation. Anyway, so I look him over and I figure, okay, maybe he can take me, but I'm going to hurt him. I'm just covering my bases here. I let him in. He looks me up and down. Guy, built, older than me. And he says, cool, man, I was a Jew once for 4 years. I got my Jewish connection. The rest is gravy, right? So I didn't want to, so I see he's a little bit nuts. I mean, I was a Jew once for 4 years. What does that mean? What are you talking about? I don't want to get that involved. I don't want to push any buttons, and flip him out. So I said, where are you going? He says, I'm going home. So I say, where's home? He says, up there on the ridge. I look at the ridge again. It's a blank, bare ridge. There's nothing there. I look back at this guy. I picked up Looney Tunes here. Who knows if my life is in danger? So I say, he says, here, he sees I'm in a quandary, so he explains himself. Here, we all live in earth homes. First of all, now I'm outnumbered. There's a we of him and there's only one of me. He has a we. And he said, but I don't want to, again, ask anything in the wrong details, so I say, what's an earth home? He says, we go to the city dump, and we dig up, well, we take the RVs, the trailers that have been abandoned. Then we go back to our place, and we dig a hole in the desert, off the road, like in that, where that ridge is. And we bury the RV in the ground, so it's just below the sagebrush. So from the road, you can't see it. But we have sunlight, and so he says, and I went to yeshiva for 4 years and then decided not to convert to be a Jew. So I know everything, but in earth homes right in this area, there are 50 Jews living. I'm an outreach rabbi. There are 50 Jews living in a desert. I say, Peter, take me to the Jews. Till 5:30 in the morning, we went from Jew to Jew. I met the valedictorian of Princeton, 1965. He was hit on the head he was a student radical in a demonstration, was paralyzed from the waist down. He's a paraplegic, brilliant fellow. I met Paula, who was pregnant with Gerard's child. She was born in Russia. She was 10 years old. She came to Chicago with her family, Russian Jews. She dropped out and got a hold of Gerard, who was not of our faith, but now she's pregnant with a Jewish child. So I told her, Paula, if it's a bris, a boy, you have to have a bris. I mean, so Peter tells me, I'm the Goy Rebbe for the Jews. I make Shabbos here. We have Friday night. I do the Seder, because no one knows that they're American Jews. They know nothing. So he knows everything. He's to learn it. So I've been sending him Shmura Matzah. This November 5th will be my 8th trip to Taos. Every time I go, I bring either Label Wolf, the Kabbalist from Melbourne, Tzvi Freeman, Emmanuel Shochet. I'm going this time with a star, Yossi Jacobson. Rabbi Jacobson is going to be in Taos, New Mexico with Shlomo and Levi Schwartz, November 5th. And we're going to get Peter Scheuer, the Protestant. He's our Shabbos Goy. And hopefully he'll help me bring all the Jews living in earth homes. So just now let's backtrace, and I'm done. Trace back a little bit. At any point in the story, a compound detail synchronicity means, at any point in the story, if something was a little this way, that way, it means it wouldn't have happened. That means, in terms of probabilities, like mathematics and statistics, it's sort of like either if you're dumb enough to think you won the lottery, or there's a method to the madness. It becomes easier and more logical to believe there is a God in that situation than there isn't. And if you press any atheist, or almost anybody really, to ask them once in your life, tell me something where you had some doubt, maybe there is a God. What happened to you? There's a famous professor, may he rest in peace, Amos Funkenstein, professor of Jewish studies at UCLA. He was a good friend. He was a devout atheist, big time, and radical, very knowledgeable. That was why he was dangerous. He knew a lot of Kabala, and he was he was the best friends with Adin Steinsaltz. They grew up together. Adin Steinsaltz used to stay, he wasn't kosher, but he brought his own food in his house. So I knew him a long time before he died. Anyway, he was married to a German non-Jewish woman. His kids became Jesus freaks. He wasn't happy about that. But someone asked him Shavuos, when he gave his traditional lecture on Shavuot in the Hill, UCLA, and I always wanted to listen to him. Someone asked him at the end of it, because he's an amazingly brilliant scholar, and he lectures always without notes, and he's a little bit like Steinsaltz, like Ginsburg. So he says, they asked him the same question people asked Jung in a documentary. Do you believe in God? So I got quiet. And he said, if you would have asked me this question 20 years ago, I would have answered much more quickly and with much more confidence. Now, I'm not so sure. I said what he meant. 20 years ago, he would tell you immediately, no question about it, there is no God, there's no God, it's not happening. Today, he has some doubt in his atheism. He lived a slice of life 20 years longer. Things happen to you from above. Okay, if it's as trivial as the parking space, and you can miss that lesson. No thanks, I just found I cracks me up every time because the guy is that dumb. I mean, he's just that out to lunch. He has no level of consciousness whatsoever. I mean, these are people who used to print the bumper stickers. He who dies with the most toys wins. I printed the same bumper sticker, but I put a question mark in the end of mine.